been doing, Arn, is I've been using planes with no collision on them for adding details, etc. That's acceptable, is it?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm recommending. Yeah, that's great.
And the other question I wanted to raise, you touched on there about detail. How much of a CPU is it to use detail in all of your textures?
What do you mean? You mean use detailed textures?
Yeah, so you've got a texture and you can go in there and assign a detail, a UV mapping against that texture. For example, brick, and if you apply the same brick, you end up with like 8 tiny little bricks within one brick. Do you understand what I mean?
Not sure I'm following you exactly there. Are you referring to the feature in Unreal where you have detailed textures, which are combined with the original texture when you get close up?
Correct.
Yeah. We'll talk a little bit about that in the framework session. But yes, I don't think it's a huge CPU impact. It's essentially a combiner, right? It's going to be adding a second pass to that texture to add the detail, and it only runs the second pass when you're up close. So it's a very good technique to use because when you're up close to something, you're probably not looking at a lot of other stuff. So it's good to spend your CPU dollars, if you like, on that extra detail. So it's highly recommended.
Okay, cool. Cheers.
All right. Let's continue here. Okay, so that's sort of talking about the optimizing initial download. Now there's also optimizing the dynamic downloads. That's the actual insertions themselves. This is all pretty straightforward stuff, right? Obviously, you're going to get faster dynamic downloads if you control your insertion size. Even though you're using JPEG compression, obviously a smaller image is going to be how you use less bytes and take less time to download and less time to decode from a JPEG, so it'll be faster. It's also worth noting what kind of image file type you're using and to use JPEG where possible. PNG is excellent because it's got transparency, but it's a lossless compression, and so its compression ratios are a lot lower. So if you can, use JPEG, and of course you can dial the compression settings in your JPEG file as well. It's all stuff that you probably know very well. All right, let's talk about rendering performance, because I think that's what most people are really, really interested in, and there's some fairly obscure things in here. So let's talk about some of the factors that drive frame rates. Obviously, the type of client, particularly GPU hardware you have, the number and type of polygons you have, size and complexity of materials, number of render steps, overdraw, GPU memory requirements, whether you're using anti-aliasing, how many particles and movers and scripts and so on, and also what else is going on, all affect frame rates. So it's a pretty complicated space. So there's lots of different trade-offs to be made here. So I'm going to address each one of these items one at a time. So first of all, let's look at what the minimum hardware for Web.Live is. This is the minimum recommended hardware, which is Intel's integrated graphics, GMA 950. It's pretty low end. It's been out there for a long time. It's fairly limited in its memory bandwidth and pure rendering hardware. It's got no transformant lighting in hardware, so it's pretty weak. But we have a pretty good rendering engine, and it's pretty efficient. So we still get decent quality. But it's worth noting that if you have a specialized application and you can control who the clients are, then if you can control the clients to have so they all have discrete graphics, even low-end discrete graphics, performance can be easily 3 times faster, and it's not hard to get into situations where it's 10 times or 20 times faster than integrated graphics. So that has an impact. So keep that in mind when you're doing your environments. If you can control who the clients are that are using it, then you can go crazy with your rendering, or for that matter, just do less optimization. All right. People are always asking me, how many polygons should I use? Well, it's not a simple question to answer because there are lots more factors than just polygons that affect performance. But let's talk about polygons. There are 3 main types of polygons that in the Unreal Engine. One, BSP, 2 meshes, and 3 terrain. And so here's just some general outline of sort of, when you should use what and why. So in general, BSP is slow to render per